to our podcast, Broker Banner Denver, where we are breaking down barriers to home ownership. I am your host, Kim Davis, the real estate expert.
And I'm Patrick Williams, the mortgage guy. We're here to inform and educate about the home buying and financing process.
And on today's episode, we have a guest, Brett Teiken with ePoint Insurance Group, who's going to inform us more about what we need to do for insurance. Hi, Brett.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
thanks for coming.
Yeah. We're super
My first
excited.
podcast, exciting.
Well, yay, welcome to the podcast. Hopefully you'll bring in more viewers for us.
Yeah, we could use a boost in ratings. Yeah.
Can't promise that. I'll do my best.
So usually we just banter a little bit since we are Broker Banner before we get into the nitty gritty of why you're here. Sure. But we were just saying that summer has approached.
It's
right?
officially here. I mean, the unofficial start of summer is Memorial Day weekend, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
so we're past that, and it's officially or unofficially summer.
Yeah. So Brett, you have any big plans for summer?
Well, I have a son playing baseball, so it's just every weekend.
Okay.
But,
yes.
When that's over, I will do some traveling and get back to work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, baseball is a big travel.
It is.
Is it club travel?
it is.
Is that what
It's
you're
club
doing?
travel,
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah.
it's fun to watch, though.
Yes, I had 2 girls in club volleyball, so we traveled.
It's a big
quite
commitment.
It is a big commitment.
Yeah.
It's like putting them through college.
It is. Hopefully, they're good enough and get a college,
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
scholarship. But even if not, it keeps
just
them
fun.
out of trouble,
Yes,
right?
that's the key.
Well, and sports is always it helps learn how to be on a team and be a good teammate.
Exactly.
And I think there's a lot of benefits to
you in
playing
the
team
workforce.
sports.
Absolutely helps you how to deal with
People
just
maybe that you
losses, wins,
Yeah.
how to deal with different personalities.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Success and failure, right?
What position does he play?
Oh gosh, catcher, which
Okay.
is always good because not
Yeah.
everybody does that, right?
I used to
Right.
catch.
Yeah, did
Yeah,
you really?
yeah.
I know nothing about it, so I can't train him. That's why I got to pay to have someone train him. But he pitches in center field and anywhere you need him. But it's just fun to watch.
That's great. That's
That's
awesome.
Awesome. So a lot of traveling there. Do you go all over the United States, or is
No,
it pretty?
we've kind of tried to keep the budget down, so we
Okay.
just do local tournaments.
Okay, yeah,
We are
but
going to
still-
Cooperstown in June, though.
Okay,
Yeah, that'll be fun.
That's
That'll be
where they
cool.
do
As the whole team, the whole team's
The whole
going.
team. Yeah,
That's where the Baseball Hall of Fame is.
That's right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, look at me
Wow.
pulling out my baseball.
Impressive, Miss Davis.
Married to a husband who talks sports a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet. Yes.
Well, I don't really have any plans. Summer is usually our busiest time of year, so I usually stick around pretty close. I mean, that's not true. I guess we do have plans. We're going to. We always go visit my family my husband's family in Michigan, so we do that. We have a family reunion, but that's not until the very end. And then my youngest just graduated from high school, so I don't
great.
know what that looks like come fall. Weird, because neither one of them will be going to school.
Yeah.
She's taking a gap year to travel.
okay.
So,
Well,
yeah,
good.
that'll be interesting.
That will be
We'll
interesting.
talk about that come August.
Yeah, stay tuned.
September. Stay tuned.
More to come on that subject.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans?
We just got back from a cruise, so that was
Right.
nice. But I'm hoping to mountain bike as much as possible locally, and maybe get up into the mountains. Crested Butte's always a great place to go. Wildflower season's getting ready to pop off there, so
The only
that's
time I've
fun.
ever been there was that season, and it was amazing. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking of buying an electric bike, which you have to insure these days,
Oh, no.
That's a good-
That's
that's a-
perfect segue
yes.
into insurance. Is that true?
Yeah, they're expensive.
They are.
Yeah, some of them you have to put on motorcycle policies.
Really?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
what makes it a bicycle versus like a
the
motorcycle
e-bike.
versus a bike?
I'm not 100% up to date on
Okay.
it, but it has to do with the speed.
Okay.
And the value.
Okay.
So I have a question for you personally.
Yeah.
So the mountain bike that I ride, it was not cheap. I think I may have spent more on it than the car my daughter drives. So we'll just put it there. So
Or the ring he bought
like,
his
if-
wife
if-
way back in the
If
day.
it's on my truck, it would be covered by my auto policy, correct?
No, it's still going to be covered under your homeowner insurance.
Homeowners. Okay. Okay.
So your auto policy is going to cover your automobile,
Okay.
all right, on an actual cash value, what's it worth.
Okay.
But
Do you need
You're-
a separate rider for the bike
There are times you might want to ask your carrier. They're all different.
Okay.
If they need to schedule that, or if it's just going to be covered under the personal property portion of your policy. But you got to remember, if some of us have a $2,000 bike, you might have a $2,000 deductible. It's
Right.
not really
Right.
worth filing a claim.
Right.
Which is something that I'm excited to talk about, because there's a perception out there sometimes to use insurance, especially home insurance, as a maintenance type of a policy. And that's not the idea behind it.
Right.
You know, we use home insurance to actually cover your largest purchases, your cars and your homes, typically your largest purchases. And I'm sorry if I'm just jumping in.
No,
We
please.
want you to.
Yeah,
Yes,
this is
please.
great.
No, this is
But,
great
I mean,
information.
really, you want to use your home insurance for catastrophic events.
Sure.
Right.
Because as you file claims, if you filed 2 or 3 claims within 3 years, you could be dropped. Right? And we don't want that for you.
Right.
Because once you get dropped, you have to go to a secondary market, and your
it's fun.
premiums are 4 times higher sometimes.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So you want to consult your agents before filing claims if you can.
So we have been talking a little bit about insurance, big insurance companies trying to get out of Colorado. Are you hearing that in the insurance business? Like there's who?
Yeah, so me personally, I had Nationwide for my homeowners,
It's on your
and
side.
it's not on my side.
No, not on
Nationwide
your
is not on my side. They over the last 2 years have gone. I think it's gone up over 250% my premium. And so I was talking to another agent at your company, and she basically said they want out of Colorado, and so they're essentially trying to price themselves out of the market.
Do you know if that's true or if?
Well, I don't know if that's exactly true. No.
Okay.
I don't think they necessarily want out of Colorado. I think they're just trying to get back to profitability. So I've been in insurance for over 30 years.
Okay.
I worked in claims. I've done claims, whether it's auto, total losses, home insurance. I've walked and burnt down homes. I've managed claims. I've worked with bodily injury claims, and then I've sold it, right? So since 2006, I've been on the sales side.
Okay.
So it's good to have a knowledgeable agent out there who
Yes.
has been through it and understands the product that you're selling, right? Well, in the last 30 years, I've never seen the industry go through what it's been going through over the last year.
Okay.
And some of these carriers just don't want business right now. And it's not that they want out of Colorado. They're losing money,
Okay.
okay? Because climate change. I don't know if it's climate change, whether you believe that or not, or if it's just cycle, whatever. But the weather is getting warmer, and there is more weather activity.
Yeah.
You can't deny that, right?
Well, I mean, I was in a tornado in Highlands Ranch last year, so that's
Right,
a rare. I
right.
don't believe that's
That's
happened
very
before.
odd.
Yes.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
actually lifted up right above my old house in Highlands Ranch.
I think we used to live in the. I live in your old neighborhood, I believe.
Do you really?
Yeah, yeah.
So you probably know a lot of my old neighbors, but
Yeah.
there was. I insured a lot of them, and there was some claim activity there, and we took good care of them. But
Yeah.
you know, there's obviously since COVID, there's inflation,
Right.
right? Big time. So you're having more weather activity, more claim activity, and higher costs to repair.
Yes.
Whether it's auto or whether it's home costs, right? I mean, there's just higher costs.
No, I think that's a good. So maybe that's a myth that we hear, you know, since we're not in the insurance business, like we've heard that because of maybe the fires that happened a few years ago.
Yeah, the
in
Marshall
Superior,
fire.
The Marshall fires. And then with hail here in Colorado, that Denver or Colorado is a harder state or has higher insurance. Is that true?
Yeah, we're a cat state. It's a catastrophe state, right?
Oh, a
you go to
cat.
Arizona,
Okay.
and that's a non-cat state,
Right,
Right,
okay.
because they don't have the weather activity, so your home premiums are probably going to be cheaper.
Right.
Because they don't have hail.
They don't have hail and as many tornadoes. If they do, they might have some dust storms.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Now their auto rates are a little similar to ours because there's so many people, right?
Yeah, and I've driven in Phoenix. It's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a melting pot.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of people.
We're a melting pot too, yeah.
I mean, look at what's going on today. You've got people texting and driving. Have you ever
Yes.
driven down the road with a passenger and asked your passenger to look at how many people are texting while they're driving? It's probably 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's scary.
I don't
Hey,
text and
I've done
drive.
it. I'm not saying I'm
That's why I got a little quiet.
I try to use Siri as much as possible.
I try to use Siri. I do have a Tesla that self-drives.
and that helps.
So
I can't wait for that. I can't wait for all these.
She even popped for the extra self-drive.
I'm on the month beta program where it completely self-drive, which is crazy.
great.
Like turns
Right.
for you on
Brakes
the regular
and
brakes
everything.
And yeah, I still pay attention.
I
but
couldn't
yes,
do that.
Yes.
You're brave.
It took me
It's
6
scary.
months. It took me 6 months before I used used it on the highway, and then now I'm pretty used to it. I love it.
I bet.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds great. But okay, anyway.
So what I'm hearing you say though is that I was maybe a little misinformed, but it sounds like these insurance companies are kind of taking it on both ends, right? Like you've got inflation on one side and additional claim activity on the other side, and so they're having a hard time remaining profitable.
They are. Excuse me. I have a cold.
No problem.
No, you're good.
So to that point, yes, the costs of goods have gone up. Supply chains have dried up sometimes, right? So it's taking longer to do repairs, right?
Yes.
Which, if your house burnt down and it's taking an extra year to do those repairs and your cost of goods are up, then you're also your extended living expenses where your insurance company pays for you to live somewhere else while your house is being rebuilt
Right.
is more expensive.
Yes.
Right? Everything's more expensive.
Uh-huh.
And even on the auto side, supplies for automobiles and parts.
Right.
And the average, I heard this, I don't know if it's
That's
exactly
okay. We make up
true.
stats all the time.
But
we talk
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Did you know that 96% of stats are made up?
Hey, I like to make up stats, but I also think there's validity behind a lot of
Right.
this.
Okay.
I believe the average auto tech, body shop tech out there, the average age is 55.
Oh.
We need our younger generation
Yes.
to go into these industries, right?
Yes.
And so if the average age is 55, they're getting paid more,
Right.
right?
Yeah, they've been in the industry a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they have experience, and so they need to be paid more.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Because they can usually fix a car faster than maybe a young person in their 20s who just got into the business.
'Cause they've done it thousands
they've done
of
it
times. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Right.
they're still training, right? But so there's just a lot of factors that go into why maybe insurance companies, everyone thinks they make so much money and they really don't. If they just tried to pay claims off of premium alone, they couldn't. They invest their money.
Right.
And many times they invest it into bonds, treasury bonds. And so as interest rates go up and they've been investing in lower rates for these number of years, the value of their investments have gone down,
Right.
right?
Interesting. I didn't
Which-
know that's how insurance.
Yeah, treasury, and I know a little bit about treasury bonds because that's where interest rates are basically
Right.
derived from, is the 10-year. So I keep a
Right.
close eye on those as well.
So
Talk
they're
a lot.
catching up. You know,
Okay.
they're catching up, and they're raising rates to catch up. They have to.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the cost of everything has gone up. And I know as a lender, one of the big things that we care about is like replacement cost coverage, right? Like we gotta make sure that if your house did, burn down or,
Right.
like you would be able to replace it and build it as it was standing previous to the catastrophe.
Which I think from, the real estate side with, the fires that happened, what we found out was a lot of people were underinsured.
Right.
That's
and
right.
So is it something that you should visit yearly, or is it like once every 5 years?
Well,
Like,
there's
to-
inflation guard built into your policies, but you have to, as an agent, insure a policy the right way the first time.
Okay.
Right? The way to insure a policy is you don't never want to underinsure anybody.
Right.
And most insurance carriers don't let you unless the agent inputs things incorrectly.
Okay.
Right? But you also don't want to overinsure people.
Right.
Right.
So
there's a balance
There's
there. You got to
balance.
find the sweet spot.
you do. You need to find that sweet spot. You need to, every carrier has a replacement cost estimator. They say, okay, we can insure it for this amount, no lower, but you can go higher. So you can
Right.
have that conversation with your policyholders and say, are you comfortable with this? You can have dwelling extensions put on. If I have a $500,000 home and I put a 50% dwelling extension on a policy, now they're covered for $750,000, right?
Is that what? So you're going to have to, because I'm not in insurance, and
Yeah.
just to help the public, what is what did you say?
Dwelling extensions.
Dwelling extension.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're there just to offset some of this inflation.
Okay.
And increase costs. They're not necessarily there to make sure you're insured correctly. You need to look at the dwelling value for that.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
But it's a cushion so that we all can sleep good at night.
Okay.
I can sleep good knowing you're covered.
Okay.
You can sleep good knowing you're covered on your home.
And is that cheaper to do a dwelling extension versus just saying, hey, I want to be, I want my policy to be 750
Yeah,
versus
it is.
a 500
Those dwelling extensions
versus...
are cheaper. Again,
Okay.
it's not necessarily what they're meant for, but they are there to provide that cushion. So
That
a lot of
cushion,
policies only have like a 10% dwelling extension. And
Okay.
for a few dollars more, literally like $20, $30 more, you could get a 50% dwelling extension.
Wow.
Why wouldn't you look at those?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And
So,
so-
speaking of, things, one thing that we've already touched on is hail, right? And being a catastrophe state and,
And
you know,
claims
and
and-
claims. And
yeah.
so we have talked about, Patrick and I have talked about like, hey, check your insurance policy to make sure that you have the right kind of roof coverage. Could you explain the different types of roof coverage that there are on homes?
Yeah, so that's where it's just kind of where insurance companies are trying, and everybody's trying to figure out how to kind of minimize all this
Right.
roof replacement, right? Because it's killing the insurance industry.
Yes.
I think except the roofers.
Well, right.
Exactly. Well, and and just to kind of talk about the roof, I do tell my buyers and sellers, and maybe I shouldn't, like especially if they're from out of state, like in Colorado, you can usually get a new roof within 10 years just because of the hail.
Yeah,
I mean,
and so they're using insurance companies to put new roofs on houses everywhere, right?
right.
Correct.
But it's okay. It's part of the policy. It's
Yes.
in the contract. If you deserve a new roof, you should get a new roof.
Yes.
Just make sure that you're either getting a replacement cost policy,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's going to pay for the whole entire roof minus your deductible.
Okay.
Or you can have an ACV policy where you share in the cost of that roof. Or some carriers are moving to schedules. So if your roof is 10 years old or older, maybe they're only going to cover 49% of that, right? And so
It's based on years, is that correct?
based on year.
So if you have a 30-year roof policy, and you said what's it called?
ACV, actual cash value. is
Actual
what that
cash
stands
value.
for.
Okay.
Yep.
So an ACV, if you have a 30-year and it's 10 years into it, you have a big hailstorm, they would only cover maybe that.
66%.
Yeah.
Maybe
something like
some
that.
policies don't have those schedules. Some
Okay.
policies, but more carriers are moving to that so that they
Right.
can keep premiums down. So they're not trying to hurt the consumer in any way.
Right.
What they're trying to do is help the consumer by keeping premiums down. Because premiums are getting to a point where they're almost unaffordable,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And
well,
that's the scary part.
just went up to, what did you say, 200% your?
Yeah, my renewal was 9,700.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which thankfully I was able to get, a better quote.
Well,
So
and they're one of my carriers as well. We work with a lot of carriers. We're contracted with them. And some carriers might raise your rate 120%, and some carriers might raise it. The same carrier might raise your neighbor 30%.
Right.
It just depends. Everyone's insurance history is different.
yeah,
Right.
And so there's always a carrier that wants you.
right.
Right,
Right?
right,
Right.
exactly.
There's
And
always
that's
a
why you're a
carrier.
broker. You
shop
broker
it.
out, you shop for,
For your clients.
yes, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
And every year, your agent should be shopping that for
Right.
you and putting the work in to make sure you've got the best rate out there.
So that's the benefit of going with somebody who's a broker like yourself compared to I know there's some agents who are like, I can
Just
only
with
sell State Farm
You're
or
like a captive
Allstate.
agent.
Captive, thank
Right.
you. That's the word that I was looking for.
Correct. And look, they're all good companies.
Exactly.
They're
Yeah,
all good
we're not-
companies. And quite frankly, we just want what's best for the consumer,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I think where maybe clients or consumers struggle is that they don't understand, right, what actual cash value is, or what a whole roof. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you said
well,
it earlier.
replacement cost,
Replacement
right?
cost is, and so maybe they only look at like, oh, I'm going to take this because it's going to cost me, $5,000 less a year or something like that, and they're not. I know that's probably not the correct, but that
Well, I love
there's
that you brought that up
Yeah.
because most consumers just look at price.
yes,
Right.
If you have to pay $500 more a year, but you have a replacement cost policy over an actual cash value,
Yes.
it's probably worth it.
yes, absolutely.
And and look at the roof schedules. Pretty soon, every carrier is going to have these roof schedules. So now you're going to be shopping roof schedules. What's the discount with this carrier compared to this carrier?
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
That's kind of where it's going, I think.
Okay.
You know, and then you have, I mean, we could get into all kinds of different directions, right? But now you have really almost an impossible time trying to insure mountain areas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where there's brush and trees and wildfires.
Right.
Just,
And how far is the nearest
Fire
station or, water pump station or,
Yeah, so those are called
Fire hydrant,
Like,
that's what I was
what
thinking.
territory are you in, right?
Right.
And here in the city, we're territory 1 to 3. It's pretty safe to insure with the exception of hail. But in the mountain, you might be in a territory 10, which means you don't have fire hydrants nearby.
Right.
Or maybe you have cisterns or you have tankers that can get there, but how fast can they get there?
Right.
Are they volunteer or are they, so you have to ask these questions, and it takes a little longer to quote those. So when you're selling a house in the
Yes.
mountains, try to encourage your clients to shop their insurance sooner
then later. Yes.
than later to make sure it's an affordable
Yeah.
insurance
That's-
policy.
It's a good advice.
That's great advice. Actually, not even that far out of Denver. I think up Deer Creek Canyon. I've had some clients go up there, and the insurance policy was a lot higher because of that issue.
That
exactly.
issue,
That
yeah.
of water, right?
Right.
Of how long
How
it takes.
accessible is it
How
for them?
accessible? Yeah,
For
absolutely.
them to put a fire out, right?
Right. Exactly.
Or
So-
with wildfire.
So as like a home buyer, right? Because that's kind of what we talk about for the most part, or it's helping people buy homes or get into a home. Like, what kind of advice do you have? If you're considering making a purchase, right? And obviously you said, get a quote early so you have an idea of what that insurance cost is going to be in your monthly mortgage payment. But maybe do you have some other advice that you could give for potential home buyers?
And are we talking about a home buyer for? I guess there's two different kinds, right? There's there's more than two different kinds, but I guess you can talk about them all, like a single family home, a condo or a townhouse, and maybe even rental.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Yeah, and we've
Yeah.
been having a lot of issues with the condos and their insurance policies causing them to no longer be warrantable because they take a higher deductible to try to keep those premiums down. And then Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac say, we don't like that higher premium, and so we're not going to lend on that
Right.
property
So we did a
anymore.
whole podcast on, why you can't have a loan on this property. Certain kind of loans on this property because these HOAs had no clue that you had to keep their
It's the 10%.
deductible.
Yeah, they would raise the
down.
At a
deductibles.
certain level.
Yeah, so the deductible has to be 5% or less,
Oh, yes.
or they
Okay.
cannot get.
Warrant-
Freddie or Fannie will not back that complex, and so we
Okay.
have a lot of people. Good, of course, HOAs are usually volunteered by people who live there,
Yeah.
and so they.
Well, the intention
didn't
is
know.
to try to keep the policy low, so HOAs don't have to raise their monthly,
Right, and
yeah.
so they were keeping premiums low, so they wouldn't have to raise HOAs.
Yeah.
And then what happened is now they've hurt their home values because now people are trying to sell and they can't buy these houses or not in a normal, loan
Conventional
loan.
financing.
And so,
Yeah, it's a tough.
It's a tough.
It's
yeah.
changing.
It's
right?
changing.
That's
yes.
what
We're right in the middle of it, and I think that's
Right
kind
in
of
the
the
middle.
Right,
And-
right.
and-
So
and
I
that's
guess
what
to
we're
kind of get back to the question, what are maybe some tips or some things that maybe buyers or sellers, but buyers should look at when they're buying homes?
Yeah, look, I'm a big, 5 to 10 years ago, it was impossible to sell anything over $1,000 deductible. Consumers just wouldn't go for it.
Yeah.
Right? But now there's mandatory $2,500 deductibles, $5,000 deductibles, 1%, 2% of dwelling deductibles out there,
Okay.
especially on the wind hail side.
Yes.
Right? But on the other perils, you can still get that easy $1,000 deductible
Okay.
because they're not as common
Right.
claims. But so we do try to encourage higher deductibles because, look, if you have a $700,000 house or $1 million house, a $10,000 deductible is not that big of a deal.
Right.
And it could bring your premium down a couple $1,000s a year.
Okay.
So you go 5 years without a claim, you've got it paid for,
right.
True.
right?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, how long it takes to recoup your costs. That's a great example.
Yeah.
Is I've just saved X dollars every single month, and now that $10,000 premium or
not-
deductible is essentially
Right.
paid for itself.
And you don't really want to file claims if you don't have to.
Right.
Because they're going to raise your rates and they're going to be on your record for 5 years.
5 years.
Right?
Okay.
5 years, then they drop off.
Right.
Same with auto, right? But getting
Auto
back to
is
your
5 years
Yeah,
also?
everything's
Okay.
3 to 5 years, but mostly 5.
I know that we used to, we don't do it as much anymore because it's been a seller's market, but when it was more of a buyer's market, we would run clue reports, I believe they were
Yeah.
called.
Oh, we used to have clues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just shows your insurance history.
Yeah.
How many claims
Yeah.
you've had,
Yeah.
when and where and
Yeah.
why and
Just
how
to
much.
see, now that does it affect, it doesn't affect house to house, right? Insurance goes with
No,
the
it
person.
goes with the person. It's
Okay.
very individualized, right? So
Okay.
you could have the same house, same cars, same number of kids, same age as your neighbor, and you're going to pay different premiums.
Right. Patrick's premiums are high because he claims he must make too many
You must
claims.
make too many claims.
I have one.
For that $10,000 bike that he bought. I'm not saying that's what
I
it
have
is, but-
no homeowners claims, and my son did get in an accident, but that's it. That's the only hits I have on my insurance.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't-
Yeah, that's another thing. Young drivers.
drivers.
They're good students, though, Brett. They're good students.
Well, make sure they are because that helps the rate.
It does.
Yes.
It does. What is a good student?
A 3.0 or
3.0.
higher average.
Okay.
3.0. Yeah, your
Yeah.
kids are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do really well. See, kind of talking about, you only want to call insurance when it's, a catastrophe or something. My kids have gotten to very, very small fender benders
Yeah.
to where we just buy the bumper and then my husband replaces
Probably
it
a good
himself.
idea. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
a
you know
good
what?
idea, see?
Well, and I
Okay,
think
getting back to
yeah, but I think
homes,
Brett
but-
did talk about initially. I think maybe we got off topic, but he talked about. You said it's before you call a claim in, you want
You
a
wanna-
call first.
I would rather have them call us. I want our clients to call us. Now, there's some claims like a water loss. It's like an emergency and it's late at night and you got to file a claim.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
And there's restoration companies you can call and get
Yes.
them out there in 5 minutes and help them stop it and turn off the water, whatever.
Right.
But most of the time, hey, I'm looking at a roof claim. Well, get a couple local roofers.
Right.
Local being the key word, I think.
Local, stressing roofers that are going to be around in case there's warranty issues to come look at your roof and get a couple of opinions.
Yeah.
You know?
And, that's always, we have tons of roofers that we work with in real estate just because, we actually, a lot of our inspection issues are, hey, you need a new roof because someone hasn't. And so we work with a lot of roofers.
Yeah,
So,
I bet. Yeah, it's great. And they're usually very good people and
They
they're
are.
very helpful.
And they will
You know.
tell you, like, hey, you have enough damage up here that there's a possibility you can get
Yeah.
an insurance claim, or no, you don't.
Well, the roofer that I had come out after the tornado said, "I don't think you have enough to make a claim."
Well, and that's a good roofer.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I
Yes.
mean how
And I
right.
would say
But I
most
think what Brett's saying too about local though, right? Maybe people don't understand why that's so important in Colorado because we do have so much hail. We get what's called storm chasers.
Right.
And you get out of state roofing companies who come in and just knock on doors and try to get as many roofs as they possibly can and then they leave town.
Correct.
And so
Yes.
you don't have somebody to call after
Local,
the fact.
reputable.
Yeah, somebody who's been in Denver a long time.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yes. So I guess kind of circling way back around because this is what we do. We get off topic.
Lots of bunny trails.
To me, it's those local roofers that'll shoot you straight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I guess is what I'm like.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
they'll be around for warranty issues.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yes.
And we want to support them.
Yes.
We do.
We
Yeah.
love supporting locals.
Like our
so.
good buddy Wyatt.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
With
great.
Valor Roofing.
I just
Valor Roofing.
That's
sent
right.
him a referral today
Oh, good.
for solar.
Okay. Yeah, he's also solar.
Oh. Okay.
Roof and Wyatt, the roof and Solar Man Duncan,
Yeah.
I think is what he goes by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a number of roofers, and I'll usually give 2 or 3 of their names out
Yeah.
and let the consumer have them all come out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And see
Figure
who
out.
they like the best and who's going to treat them the best.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess once again, what am I trying to say? Some policies or some things that you would want to tell like maybe a first time home buyer or someone like on policies.
Yeah, so look, let's shop for premium like we
Okay.
always want to do.
Yes.
And we're going to shop it through all the carriers, but let's make sure you have certain coverages on there. Let's make sure it's replacement cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? It's not that much more expensive than an actual cash value policy, and
Right.
And I don't think I've ever sold an actual cash value policy.
Oh, good.
Maybe once I did, and then I realized it was literally like $100 cheaper, and I talked the consumer into not buying it.
Okay.
Right? But you want to make sure that your roof is covered for replacement cost if it can be. If it can't be, let's look at the scheduling, right? What's it going to cost you,
Right.
Along with your deductible?
So speaking of, since roof's such a big deal. So if you live in a condo and the HOA has their own condo policy, and then all of a sudden, which happens a lot, they slap a special assessment on a homeowner, and they're high now. I just had a client who had a $15,000 assessment for a roof. I had another client who said they had a $30,000 assessment for a roof, and they're living in condos. They're usually first-time homebuyers or
just getting started.
or
retired.
seniors who are on a fixed income. Is there a policy or anything that can help with special assessments?
Well, the nice thing is those condo and townhome policies are cheaper because they do have HOAs that cover the structure and the roof.
Correct.
So you're covering drywall in, right?
Right, the HO6.
The HO6.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you. Look at that.
And HO3 and HO5 is a regular single-family home policy, right?
Okay.
So the HO6s are cheaper policies, usually under $1,000 most of the time. Some of them are a little over. It just depends on how much coverage you need, right? But yes, you want loss assessment coverage on your policy. Right?
So is that like a rider that would be added, or?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not necessarily always guaranteed on a policy, so ask about it.
Okay.
And then here's the other thing about loss assessment. It's only going to come into play if it's a covered peril. Right? So hail is a covered peril.
Okay.
Right? But I have a condo, and we had groundwater get into the electrical box and fry it, and we got assessed a lot of money, and it wasn't covered.
Because that's considered
Because it
flood.
was groundwater flood, right? And so I couldn't use my loss assessment coverage. So there's, it's got to be a covered peril.
Okay.
Right? But we could put $50,000 of loss assessment coverage on. It's very cheap.
Okay.
Maybe $60, $80 a year. But sometimes it's even cheaper, right?
Okay.
But some of these carriers now are limiting any wind and hail loss assessment to like $2,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or $2,500. So you
Which that's not much help.
ask the questions. It does help, but it's
It does, but if you have a $30,000 assessment, right, that's not much.
That's because, I don't know why the HOA doesn't have the money, but usually, that's what it was. But it was also siding. I think it was roof and
siding.
Yeah. To where
hail
the
can come in sideways, right?
correct.
Get you.
So which the 14,000 was just the roof. What about on a single family detached home and sewer issues?
Yeah, so you used to never have this coverage available, but now they have this sewer line coverage, right?
Okay.
Utility line coverage. It's great. It's again, I'm just throwing numbers out there. They could be up or down, but $60 to $80 a year.
Yeah.
You should have. If you're buying a house in a mature neighborhood with big trees.
Yeah.
I've had to dig twice into my sewer lines
Yeah.
without that coverage, and it was
Yes.
about $12,000.
Yep.
Yes.
Put a
Right?
new,
Yes.
the old clay lines that.
Yeah.
Yes.
They go bad.
So we
Yeah.
just want to make sure you guys talk about that if you're, buying a house in an older neighborhood or even in a newer neighborhood. Sometimes
you could just have inverted the construction.
right. Like
It does help if it goes downhill, I think, doesn't it?
But yeah, like bentonite in Colorado is a big thing, and so I had an inspector. He was in here a while ago, but he actually told us a story where it was a new build. And they had put the sewer lines in and then, built the road over it, and it had crushed the sewer line. And so he had done a sewer scope just to make sure before these people bought. And
A new build. Like, you're like, I don't need to
brand
do
new
the.
build.
Wasn't
It wasn't. I think it was
Or
just
was it just
going
broke?
out. It was just broke.
Yeah.
And so it was just going out there, so it didn't actually back up. But then, had he not done that, or if they had gotten in after the fact, and insurance. And they
True.
had to pay that out of pocket. That's
Yeah,
expensive, like you
it's
said.
expensive,
So
yeah.
it's always good
Well,
to
that
have
sewer
that
line
extra
coverage is going to cover you within your property line.
Right, exactly.
Otherwise, it's a city's
Correct.
responsibility. But it's great to have, and it is limited. I think it's some of them are limited to $10,000.
Yeah, but still.
If it's
Still,
12,000,
12 and you're
yeah.
paying 2 instead of 12. That's great,
I think that's great for
Right.
anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess
and it's cheap coverage.
right.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I've seen. I think in the real estate industry, the special assessment loss, or what did you call it again? I'm sorry.
The loss assessment.
Loss assessment,
Yeah,
yes.
that's okay.
And then also the sewer lines. Are there anything else that you think that you have seen that?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could get, so sometimes, when a hailstorm comes in sideways, it might damage one side of your house, right? And so you want to ask about matching siding coverage, right?
Never even heard of that.
You could have a 25-year-old house and the paint's faded.
Right.
And the insurance company only is responsible to replace the siding that's damaged and repaint, right?
Okay.
So now you have brand new paint on one side and faded paint on another side.
That looks great. I'm sure the neighbors like you now.
And
I've never even heard of that, matching siding.
matching siding.
Okay.
Yeah. So not every carrier offers it, but most do.
Okay.
And it's not too expensive, but it adds to your premiums, and a lot of people don't want to pay any more than they have to.
Oh, right.
So you give them the options.
Right.
Right.
And that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's a couple. I've never heard of that one. That's new for me.
That is new for me
Yeah.
too. I like it. That's,
Yeah.
exactly.
I just picture my house like being two different colors, and it really it bothers me a lot.
The HOA would not.
No,
let that
I
happen
think
too long.
I would have to paint my house at my own expense.
At your own expense.
Yes.
Most of the time,
Yeah.
that's what happens. And
Right.
It's not that bad.
No.
It happens. It's called being a homeowner.
Yeah,
Right, yeah,
no,
there's always
it is
something.
the joys of home
Yes.
ownership. Well, I think really some good, useful information. I think one maybe last question is maybe for those who might be listening that aren't yet homeowners, right? Like a renter's policy. What kind of things maybe do you recommend for those? I know a lot of people now require them, right? Like
Well,
if
they're
you were,
very important. They're very cheap.
yeah,
Yes.
$125 to $225 a year, for minimal coverage. But
Right.
some things to think about, though, is, okay, people say, okay, I have to have a renter's policy. So they get the cheapest one. And you might have $25,000 in personal property protection. Well, guess what? If your apartment burnt down, half of that money is not going to go to replace your furniture. It's going to go for a pack out, for a restoration company to come in and pack that stuff. And you don't want to do that yourself, right?
Oh,
No.
didn't even think about it.
No.
Yeah.
So now you have 15 or 10,000 left to replace your couches and everything else, right?
that probably doesn't go very far.
No, and it's such a cheap policy, just raise that up a little bit, right?
Okay.
Make sure your liability coverage is there. If you're renting a house, require renter's insurance from your
Yes.
renters, right?
Yeah.
I had a client who their renter was grilling outside, caught the eave on fire, burnt the whole house down. But they had $300,000 in liability on their renter's policy, which covered a lot of that
Okay.
house, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of good reasons to have these policies that are there for a reason.
They are there for a reason.
Yes.
Really kind of cover our butts.
Yeah, I mean,
CYA.
Yeah, that's right.
nobody likes to talk about insurance or think about it or pay for it until you need it, right?
Until
Right.
you need it, right.
Yeah.
And as we've seen in Colorado, it is needed.
It
a
is
lot.
absolutely needed. I might date myself here a little bit, but I don't know if you remember the show King of the Hill. Is an animated show, and there was this one episode where Hank Hill realized his insurance coverage has lapsed, and so it was like for the whole weekend he was not willing to do anything. Like he wouldn't drive, he wouldn't do anything because it's like we're not insured. We're not insured.
I wish I would have seen that episode.
Yeah.
Don't let yourself be Hank Hill.
Right.
Make sure you've got the proper coverages.
Yes, and if you don't, I mean, well, like mortgage companies will apply insurance on you if for some reason,
you're
right?
uninsured, yeah, it's
You
forced
don't
place
want that.
insurance.
You don't want
And that's-
forced place coverage.
and it's
It's
very
expensive.
expensive.
Very expensive.
Yes, very expensive. So, you should call Brett. And so, we didn't talk, but we'll put your information on the website and on our program.
Yeah, if somebody wants to reach you, how do they get in contact with you, Brett?
Well, it's just www.epointgroup.com, or our phone number is 720-420-1720.
Awesome.
So
Perfect.
I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean, I
call
think we learned a couple new things today.
Yes. I learned, I'm going to look at the siding policy. That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Just make sure you have a knowledgeable agent.
Yeah, yes.
That's right.
yes,
I think
we
that's
will.
most important.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah,
Yes,
and if you
call Brett.
don't have an agent, you should
Get
switch
one.
insurance.
A lot of people like to buy online and they don't necessarily know what they're buying.
Exactly.
But it's okay. Just have someone look it over.
Right.
And then have someone shop it to make sure you're still getting the best rates and your coverages are adequate.
Right. And like you said, there are so many different variables on insurance.
There
So
are,
we want to
yeah.
make sure that you know what you're covered for, whether you have, cash value or replacement or
Actual cash value, ACV.
ACV.
There we go. Well, you know what, Brett? Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for
Yes.
having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. If you know anybody that finds this podcast valuable or needs to learn a little more about insurance coverage, please make sure to like us or share us. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube.
Thanks. See you next week.
Thank you.